Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 1:20 p.m. on the 18th of March 2025. Just about to get what looks like a bit of a storm blowing through again. Weather's on the turn. I've got 3 stories left from this wonderful The Dream Finder and Other Creation Stories book by Ted Hughes. So I thought I would soldier on and try and do all the last of the 3 stories if I can maintain enough impetus and energy levels. Just had a very nice filling lunch, so I feel satisfied and comfortable in my belly at least, because this army fights on her belly, this one woman army. Not that I ever wanted to be in an army per se, but it's just how it goes. People of Earth, a daughter of the gods, and muse. My muse is Bodicea. I mean, you got to just roll with it, babies. Wasn't born in Aries for no reason either. Must have been a warrior in another lifetime. Certainly had enough battles going on in this one. But anyway, in the quest for shalom, peace, let us continue with the lovely stories and see what surprises unfold for us before my eyes as I read them to you. The Grizzly Bear and the Human Child. When God created woman, he had to give her a toy. While man was away in the forest collecting food, she had to have something to play with. It's a bit infantilizing, isn't it? A bit misogynistic, treating her like she's just some little child needing a toy. Wow. Probably explains a lot about his relationship with Sylvia Plath, doesn't it? Just say. Anyway, suspend belief. It's a story. It's probably not got any real significance behind that. And Mama T needs to calm her farm and stop reading into things. Unfortunately, I have a brilliant mind and I read into things on multifarious levels, and occasionally I get things wrong. On occasion, rarely. Anyway, God knew that she liked jewels, gems, and precious stones of all kinds. Man had found her a few of these, and she would spend hours sorting them out, arranging them, and simply gazing at them. So God thought a living jewel would be just the thing. That's when he invented snake. How he made snake is another story. But when snake was finished, she was dazzling. Every scale was a different jewel. Best of all were her eyes. Her eyes were such powerful jewels. They made God feel slightly funny when he looked at them. Oh, my word, he whispered to himself. What have I done? I hope she's all right, but I must say, she's a beauty. Snake lay there, looking at God. She felt very dark and deep. She felt full of, she wasn't quite sure what, but she knew she ought to keep it hidden from God, whatever it was. So she lay very still. Snakes are like that. I found out living with one that I named Sybil for 12 days. Ooh! She a powerful symbol of the transformation I've been going through ever since. She moved out on the 11th of November, and it's been a very interesting journey the last 4 months. Lots of shedding of old skins and sometimes laying very still and other times dancing wildly and triumphantly and shedding. Woman was overjoyed with her new toy. You see, God said, you hang it around your neck and that's a necklace. Or she'll coil around your arm and that's a bangle. Or around your waist and that's a jewel belt. Or around your head and she's a crown. Isn't she a beauty? And here's a little mirror to go with her, so you can see how beautiful she makes you look. Now woman spent the whole day playing with her snake, and Snake was very happy with their games. She would coil around woman's neck and rear up her neat little face beside woman's face, and the two of them would gaze at themselves in the mirror, in the hand mirror, sorry. I wonder if a snake would really do that. I know my cats when they were alive and my dog when he was alive were terrified of mirrors, didn't like mirrors at all. As soon as they saw, even Beauregard, if I tried to take a photo of him and he saw his reflection on the iPhone screen, he would really freak the hell out. As he got older, I had to explain to him, Mummy's taking a photo of you, Bobo. And then sometimes he would pose. But I had to give him the heads up. He was very frightened of seeing himself in the screen. Anyway, oh my beauty, woman would say. I'm actually thinking about getting another dog. Can't replace Beauregard, but it'd be nice to have company around the house. But then on the other hand, it ties me down because I can't go anywhere. But then on the other hand, where have I gone anyway? It's all rather silly, isn't it? I'll think about it because it's a lot of expense having a dog and then the trauma when they get sick and you can't afford the vet bills, which are enormous, and they're sadistic and vicious. They were so vicious when they put on the day that he was due to be put down. So cruel and sadistic and vicious. I'll never forgive those bastards. I actually almost wish someone would just bomb the entire place. Of course, that won't happen, and I certainly won't do a thing like that, but consider themselves bombed. That's how vicious they were. Awful they were. Awful. They've never been quite the same since, quite frankly, like losing Beauregard in that nasty, foul, vicious, sadistic way. And, it's just been kind of a seeping wound. So no, maybe I shan't get another dog. Can't put myself through that emotional torture ever again. It's just too awful. I live in a world now where humans are cruel and sadistic and feckless and false, and you can't rely on them. Not even the professionals anymore. You can't rely on them to be honouring and do the right thing, even by your animals. So fuck that shit. I guess it's time I left completely, but I have a strong life force and I tend to be stubborn and stoic and hold on. Sometimes even I wonder What the fuck am I holding on for? It's really quite pointless. But anyway, dark thoughts, and I'm trying to be happy today, because today I'm setting myself free. Had a woman at the club point the bone at me a few weeks ago. I want you to be free, Tanya. In another paradigm, meaning she wanted me dead kind of thing. But ironically, her words are resonating now. I'm setting myself free. While still alive in this body, in this 3D reality here in Brisbane, Australia, I'm setting myself free because I deserve a real love. And, well, I'll have to be that love for myself, won't I? I've always known that, even since I was a tiny child, so I've always known it. Every time I've tried to have a loving, beautiful love partnership, it's always turned ugly. Sometimes through no fault of my own, other times circumstances beyond my control. And you just got to know when it's time to move on, walk away, keep a little bit of fucking dignity for yourself, quite frankly. Anyway, at least there's no harm and no foul, because I didn't betray my values, even though it was tempting at times, and I didn't betray anyone else ultimately. I can hold my head high, but the pain is going to reverberate for quite some time, actually. It's just awful how I was treated in the end. It's always awful, always ends up awful. So I just have to let it roll off my shoulders and carry on, babies. Carry on. Oh, my beauty, woman would say. She would actually kiss Snake's cold little nose. Snake liked this, but what he liked best was woman's warmth. Man wasn't so sure about Snake. Those eyes made him uneasy. So he built Snake a hutch under the floorboards, out of sight. From there, Snake could slide out into the garden, or she could come up through a hole under the bed to play with woman. But when man was home, Snake had to be out of sight. As he came home in the evening, man would whistle a tune to warn Snake. Then woman would say, "Oh dear, here he comes, away you go, sorry, my little beauty," and she would kiss Snake's cold nose. And Snake would slide. It's a good way to get fucking salmonella poisoning, actually. I think you can get salmonella from kissing snakes. It's probably the only animal I wouldn't kiss. My friend Lynn gave me one of her Mama Lynn lectures about me not kissing animals and how filthy it is and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I have no problem kissing birds or mammals if they're my pets and I know where they've been, kind of thing. But snakes, no, not the slightest bit tempted to kiss a snake. Although I've kissed many human snakes in my day. There is that, babies. Anyway, So he built Snake a hutch under the floorboards, out of sight. From there Snake could slide out into the garden. Or she could come up through a hole under the bed to play with Woman. But when Man was at home, Snake had to be out of sight. Oh dear goddess, I'm having some kind of breakdown, I really am. I've already bloody read that. I do apologise. Right off my chops I am. Lost me at kissing snakes in the grass and false lovers and fake friends and, oh, worse than any snake. Sybil was quite pleasant to have around actually. Didn't bother me at all. In fact, when she comes back, probably the next time it's time to shed her skin, I'll probably make her just as welcome. She was a sweetheart. Right, anyway, let's get back to the story, people of Earth. And she would kiss Snake's cold nose, and Snake would slide away down under the floorboards. And there she would lie in the dark, listening to Man and Woman, and feeling left out. Yes, because it's rather cruel to pour so much love into someone and then withdraw it to please someone else's agenda. Been there, done that. Got multiple hair shirts. Anyway, doesn't matter ultimately. Ultimately, nothing really matters. And there she would lie in the dark listening to Man and Woman and feeling left out. Right. Well, one evening, Man brought home a lamb. It's lost its mother, he explained, out there on the mountain where life is tough. We shall have to look after it. So Woman looked after the lamb. With Snake draped round her shoulders, she would feed the lamb milk from a bottle, and Snake would stare at the lamb's furry little head and its sleepy little eyes as it drank. Snake did not like this at all. Woman was too fond of this funny little thing, and once, when Woman suddenly snatched up the lamb and kissed the top of its head, Snake went and her forked tongue flickered in and out. She couldn't stop herself. But the lamb soon grew too big to cuddle. In fact, it very quickly turned into a ram and galloped off to the mountain, where it looked for another ram so they could batter their heads together, which is what rams love to do. Oh yes, we do. We Aryans, we rams. Dear goddess. Snake felt happy again, coiled on Woman's warm stomach as she lay in the sun or draped around her waist as she worked in the garden. Spirit, don't interrupt, thank you. Go back to the light or wherever you came from. Yelling out, secret, secret. I'm not buying into it because before I began this video, I actually did a protection prayer to prevent that kind of nonsense from happening. So I'm not happy. Didn't even obey my protection prayers. Well, anyway, they're giggling now. Secret, secret. There are no secrets. There's only lies and deception and cruel sadistic games. And they all know, Mama T, will never play a game because the only way to win a game is not to play. So, secret. Go away. Go back to the light. Snake felt happy again, coiled on woman's warm stomach as she lay in the sun, or draped around her waist as she worked in the garden. But then man brought home a baby rabbit, so tiny it sat on his hand. "Oh, he's lovely," cried woman. And Snake, already under the floorboards, hissed, "What now?" And he lifted her head so sharply, she lifted her head so sharply, she cracked it against the board above and flopped flat for a moment, almost knocked out. That made her even angrier. During the day, woman played with the baby rabbit. I do love rabbits. I miss my daughter's pet rabbits. They were lovely. Ramon and Suki. They were lovely. During the day, woman played with the baby rabbit and Snake had to pretend she liked it. Actually, she felt more like eating it. It would go down, she thought, very smoothly. That would stop its idiotic little nose bobbing about. Instead, she did something amazing. Woman was searching under her chest of drawers for the little rabbit. She had left Snake coiled on her dressing table. Close to Snake's nose lay a comb. In the comb glistened 2 of woman's hairs. A sudden thought came to Snake. She took the hairs between her lips and drew them out of the comb. Then, with a few twists, she coiled them around her head. The next thing, woman heard a strange voice, a woman's voice. "Hi there," it said. Woman twisted around. There, leaning against her dressing table, was another woman, almost exactly like herself, and yet different. "Can I play too?" laughed the new one, and made 3 wild leaps across the room, turning a somersault and landing on her knees beside woman. "Where's this diddly bud?" she cried, and raked her arm under the chest of drawers. "Hey, here he is! Well, I never!" She dragged the rabbit out by its ears, squirming and kicking. Woman simply stared at her new playmate. "Who are you?" she gasped. "Where are you from?" "I'm Snake," laughed the new one. "Don't I look good? Come on, let's go have some fun in the woods. Find some more rabbits, maybe." From that moment, every day, Snake turned into another woman, exactly like woman, and all day they played together. "But how are you so like me?" woman kept saying, and Snake would answer, "I am another you." So that's what woman called her, Other Me. "I like that," cried Other Me, and flinging her arms around woman, jumped into the river with her. But every evening, as soon as they heard man's whistling tune, Other Me turned back into Snake and slid down her hole into the dark. Woman never breathed a word about her to man. Other me was a very exciting person, even if she was a snake. And if man knew about her, well, he might spoil things. He didn't seem to like Snake at all. Anyway, woman didn't want to share other me, even with her husband. Now and again, though, woman remembered the baby lamb and the baby rabbit. Even while she was out with her new playmate, maybe swimming in the river, she would suddenly remember the lamb. She would lie there, floating on her back, thinking about the lamb. Thinking about the lamb always gave her the strangest feeling, a very sweet feeling. And she thought about it more and more. One night, when the moon had risen over the forest, man and woman lay in bed talking, and Snake lay under the floorboards listening as usual. "Aren't lambs lovely?" woman was saying. "Isn't a lamb the loveliest thing? Isn't it strange how it makes you want to cuddle it? I think it's the prettiest thing. It's just so pretty." "Very clever of God," said man, "to think of the lamb." "And the baby rabbit," said woman. "Why is it so pretty? Why does it make you want to cuddle it and kiss it?" "Well," said man, "it has a funny little round face, that's why. And funny little round ears. It's sweet somehow." "Are all baby things like that?" woman asked. "Like what?" asked man. "Pretty," said woman. "So you feel you want to cuddle them and kiss them." Man was silent for a while. Under the floorboards, Snake listened. At last man said, "Well, I suppose they are, come to think of it." "Yes, they are. Little birds, even little pigs. Baby pigs are the sweetest things. Funny little faces." They were silent for a while. Snake listened to their thoughts working silently in the bed above. Then woman said, "Would a baby of ours be like that?" Another silence. But then man said, "I expect so. Yes, I suppose it would, in its way." After that, there was a long silence. Then woman said, "Will you ask God tomorrow?" "What?" asked man. "Ask him what?" "For one for us," said woman. Snake slowly lifted her head. She listened hard. The house was so still she could almost hear the moon. She thought man had gone to sleep. But at last his voice came. "Okay, why not?" Snake's eyes glared invisibly in the pitch black under the floorboards. They glared so hard they crackled. What was this? A baby human being. A new little playmate for woman. First a lamb, then a rabbit, and now this. Wasn't she, Snake, woman's darling playmate? Wasn't she woman's other me, her living hoopla, her adjustable jewel. So what was the need for a new little human being with a funny round face and funny little ears? Don't forget the constant bloody screaming either, dear goddess. Anyway, well, Snake would see about that. Snake would have something to say about that. Tense with cold fury, she slid along and out of her hole under the wall of the house into the garden. Her eyes shone with dark power. A frog's golden eyes were gazing at the moon. Its body was wet with the dew. It did not know about Snake, but suddenly it knew it could not move. An invisible power was gripping it. Then it was grabbed and swallowed, and it had no idea what had swallowed it. It simply went numb. Poor frog. Snake flicked her tongue. Tomorrow, she hissed, we shall see a baby human with a funny little face, a sweet little thing with funny little ears for women to play with and cuddle and kiss. Not if I can help it. Again she raised her head and looked towards the house, so silent in the moonlight. A brain wave swept from the tip of her tail to the tip of her forked tongue in one shiver. She slid back under the foundation of the house and up through her hole into the room. Man and woman were asleep, noses in the air. By the light of the moon that came in through the window, Snake reared up and looked on to woman's dressing table. There it lay, the necklace of tiny red seashells like red fingernails. She pushed her head through it and kinked her neck slightly so it hung there. With the necklace swinging from her kinked neck, Snake pulled herself back down through her hole to her place under the floorboards. And there she curled up, waiting for day. Next morning, early, man kneeled in front of God in God's workshop. He had made his request, and now he waited. Well, said God, I hope you are quite sure you know what you are asking for. Oh yes, cried man, we are, we certainly are. We've talked it over. He's got no idea what they're in for. No idea, although some babies are serene and sweet, but mine weren't. Mine were hellions on earth. Oh dear goddess. Well, I guess Crystal wasn't quite so bad, but oh Jasmine, oh, she didn't stop screaming for 2 entire years, constantly, constant screaming. Nightmare of a child it was. But anyway, it's genetics. Genetics, people of Earth, come from a long line of screamers. So there is that. Right, here we go. Just open that curtain a bit. Sun's trying to come out to shine. Get quite positive and hopeful actually. Positive and hopeful people of Earth. God gazed down at the top of man's bowed head. Well, it might be quite interesting, making a little human. 'Twould be a change anyway, from what he was doing. In the middle of his workshop stood an immense grizzly bear, on its hind legs like a man. Its big round ears touched the ceiling. Its paws were raised and nearly touched the ceiling. On each paw were 5 claws, each claw about 6 inches long and jet black. It was twice as tall as man, with shaggy, dark brown and gingery fur. All it needed was the breath of life. God was pleased with it. He didn't want to give it life straight away. Once alive, it would be gone, out into the dark forest. No, he wanted to admire it for a while. Just for a joke, he said to man, "You're sure your wife wouldn't prefer this fellow? He's all ready to go. She could have him now." And he nodded towards Grizzly Bear. It was only now that man saw what the huge dark shape was, and his eyes bulged. The bear was so huge, man hadn't realised it was an animal. He had thought it might be a great rug, God's giant bedspread maybe, hanging to air. But now he looked at it. Ugh, ugh, ugh! Strange grunting noises came out of him, and he began to shuffle backwards on his knees, as if the bear had stepped towards him. He began to shake all over. He couldn't stop it. "There," said God, patting his head. "Don't be scared. It's not alive. Here, take an apple and tell your wife the baby's on its way. Off you go. Laugh. Be happy. Let me hear you laugh. How is your laugh these days?" Man turned his bulging eyes and fixed them on God. His chin quivered. "Go on," cried God. "Give us a good laugh. Come on now. Laugh." "Ha ha ha!" barked man, and his eyes jerked sideways, back to the bear. He thought his laugh might make it attack him. "Forget the bear," cried God. "Come on, a good old belly laugh, like this. Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Ha!" God roared with happy laughter. The whole workshop shook and the door banged open. "Come on," cried God. "Now! And "Ah!" roared man, imitating God, trying not to look at the bear. "That's it," cried God. "Again!" roared man. It was actually a dreadful sound, and as he tried to laugh, man's eyes switched to and fro between God and the bear. "Let's hear you laughing like that all the way home," cried God. "Let's hear how happy you are with your news. The baby's due tonight." roared man as he backed out of the door. He backed down the ladder, fell the last few rungs, stumbled across God's garden, glancing wildly backwards, and plunged into the jungle. Every moment he expected to see the grizzly bear, burst out after him, laughing in that horrible way. He stumbled and fell, got up and fell again, wrenching branches aside, falling over roots. He crashed through the undergrowth, laughing like a madman. Oh, dear goddess, it all gets rather silly, doesn't it? Sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it, babies. Remember, God shouted after him, tonight. I'd be a bit hysterical if my babies came within one night too. Even 44 weeks was not long enough to prepare me. Dear goddess. Anyway, I loved my children, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adored my children. I worshipped them. I absolutely adored them. But anyway, something went wrong. Like all my great loves, something always went wrong. That's why I'm laughing now. It's called hysteria. But anyway, you just have to laugh at the end of this. At the end of the day, what do I always say? She who laughs last laughs longest and laughs best, and at the end of the day it all just becomes comedy. Sometimes it's too soon though. Premature comedy. Got to process the grief and let it all wash out of you and realise the big fucking joke that's been played and laugh, just laugh, and then carry on as if nothing had ever happened, because you've got cojones and couth and decency and laughter. What a woman. What a woman, people of Earth. Sometimes I impress myself ever so slightly. Remember, God shouted after him, tonight. He shook his head, smiling, and turned to his bench. Now let's see, he murmured. A human baby shouldn't take too long. Pardon me. God had almost finished. He was just fixing the last of the tiny, perfect fingernails when the room darkened slightly. Somebody stood in the doorway. He looked up. Hello, woman. God smiled a broad smile. He gazed at her. She really did look pretty good. The big red flower in her hair perfumed his whole workshop. Her red shell necklace gleamed. He had never made anything else quite like a woman. And today she looked extra special. She looked so gorgeous. In fact, he felt just a touch of fear. That surprised him. His hair prickled slightly, looking at her. Almost finished, he said. How do you like it? He pointed to the baby and his eyes danced, expecting to see her stunned with the sheer joy. Instead, she burst into tears. She stayed there in the doorway, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders sobbing. What's this? God was amazed. What's the matter? Isn't it what you wanted? She shook her head so hard her red shell necklace clashed to and fro, and tears scattered from her face like jewels. No, she sobbed. No, it isn't. But, said God. But what do you want? The man said. Woman lifted her face. Her great eyes shone, her eyelashes glistening with tears. She stared at him. He could feel the power of her eyes gripping his. "The bear," she wailed. "I want the bear. I don't want the baby. I want the bear." My husband didn't understand. The bear, I want him. Oh, just look at him. He's all I want. "You want the grizzly bear?" God's voice squeaked. He could not believe it. "Oh, please, please, God, please, please." The moment my husband told me about him, I just knew. He's all I've ever wanted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, please. And with a sobbing wail, she seemed to fling herself back down the ladder and lurched away over the garden, her arms writhing like scarves. "Oh," she wailed. "Oh." God sat down. He truly was stunned. He shook his head slowly. He could still hear her wailing sobs as she ran through the forest. My, she was upset. He looked at the baby on his bench, then turned his head and looked at the tower of shaggy terror, the grizzly bear, his great hooked paws lifted so high. He shook his head again, slowly, and slowly he shrugged. He's easily manipulated, this God in this story, isn't he? Very easily manipulated. I suppose if you're a pure spirit and you're innocent and you haven't incorporated your own darkness enough, can be easily manipulated. I hate manipulators, deceivers, liars. I hate them with every fibre of my being. And how does that help me actually survive on this planet? Not at all. So I'll have to rise above it, live my best life, laugh and be joyful and triumphant and defiant and set myself free. Halfway to man's house, woman staggered to a halt, panting. She leaned against a tree. She was still sobbing, but then, in the strangest way, her sobs became chuckles, then laughs. She writhed her whole body and coiled into a loop, laughing. She stuffed the red flower into her mouth to gag her laughter, and the petals blew everywhere. She rolled full length among the orchids. At last she lay there, panting, lengthening, growing thinner. She gleamed like a snake, and She was Snake. Snake. Smiling, her head lifted, she slid homewards, the necklace swinging from a loop in the tip of her tail and a petal sticking out of the corner of her long, curved mouth. Man made a little cradle cot. Woman had made coloured blankets. They sat on their bed, knees up, waiting. Did God say he would bring it himself? Woman asked. Hard to say, said man. How it will come? I expect he'll bring it. Man played a little tune on his conch harp, which was a big seashell strung with twisted horse hairs. It was his latest song. Come into my kitchen, said the spider to the fly. 9 sour apples make a sweetie pie. Woman gazed at the window. The tops of the trees, the sun going down red and clear. Maybe we should meet it halfway, she suddenly said. Let me, said man. You stay. I'll see if he's coming. Buruchu haba'a. Be silent, David said. There'll be no blessing he who comes, 'cause it's all over. Reda Mama T has made a decision. She'll have to abide by it. Honestly. Man went out through the open door. Woman lay back on her pillow. She was trying to imagine what a human baby would be like. Well, she supposed this was what it was to be happy. She listened to man's little conch harp, plinkety-plonk, and his voice, so soft and peaceful. Said the spider to the fly, wrap me in a shawl, oh, I'll be the sweetest baby of them all. But then she almost jumped out of her skin. A horrible scream. I'd scream louder, but, don't want my non-caring, dastardly cesspit neighbours that quite prepared to put me in harm's way pre-cyclone to think I'm actually screaming because they wouldn't give a flying fuck anyway, and maybe I should scream. Maybe instead of laughing, I should scream primally, like in the good old days in 1996, when I primal screamed for 4 hours. Oh, did I reach catharsis that day? Babies. Much needed it was too. But anyway, we won't go there. I reserve my screaming for more exciting things like true loving passions and happiness and delight. Little squeals of delight. Anyway, I'm just being silly, you understand. Doesn't behoove one to make me scream in anger or frustration or despondency. But anyway, I'm very cautious who I scream at or scream with these days. Most people aren't worthy of the slightest bit of my emotion, so I usually try to contain it these days. I'm so glad I'm not young anymore. Don't feed the psychic vampires quite as much anymore. Where were we? So she screamed a horrible scream out there in the garden. So horrible. She thought it must be some horrible new animal. Some hideous new great giant bird just made by God as a mistake. Man appeared in the doorway. His face was all mouth, and the scream came again, this time out of his face. He leapt onto the bed, grabbed woman and fell with her over the other side of the bed. You have to laugh. He rolled into the low space under the bed, bringing her with him, clinging to her tightly. Now woman heard a grunting roar. From under the bed, she could see something blocking the doorway of the house. Something was trying to get in, but was too big. It was jammed in the doorway, struggling to get through into the room. The house shook. It's the bear, gurgled man. It's Grizzly Bear. She could see that its huge head with its funny puffy cheeks and big round woolly looking ears was through the doorway. But its shoulders were too broad, its whole body was too massive to get in. Look at its ears, she whispered. Ears? Cried Man. Never mind its ears. Look at its mouth and listen to it and wait till you see its claws. Don't you know what horrible is? Its roar was weird, like a vast iron barrel bouncing down a rocky ravine, and deafening inside that room. Everything in there danced and trembled. But woman only cried, "What's it saying? It's saying something. Listen, listen." They both tried to listen. "Stop your teeth chattering," cried woman, "so we can listen." Man clamped his mouth tight shut. Yes, they could hear words quite clearly in that vast, shaggy bellow coming from the bear's throat. "Mama! Mama!" "Oh, no," whimpered Man. "I thought God was joking. He meant it. Oh, no, I can't believe it. He sent the bear as your baby." "Dada!" roared the bear, ripping great splinters off the threshold with its claws. The doorposts bent inwards and cracked loudly. "Mama! Mama! That thing my baby?" cried woman. "Oh, please God, no." Then she too started to scream. She banged the floor with her fists, then put her hands over her eyes. So there they were, woman screaming with her hands over her eyes, and Man sweating with fear holding her, both jammed under the bed, while the house shook and jolted, and the great bear's terrible face twisted and pushed and gaped and roared in the doorway, trying to get in. And under the floorboards, under the screaming and crying couple, Snake lay in the pitch darkness on wood shavings in a great loose knot and smiled. "How are things going?" said a big familiar voice. At the same moment, the window was completely filled with a gigantic shining eye. It was God peering in. "Something wrong, eh?" "Take him back!" screamed woman. "Take him back! He's too big. Take him back!" God could see straight away that things had gone awfully wrong. But what did they expect? "Well," he sighed, "I really did think, that Grizzly Bear might be a bit too much, but you would insist." His eye disappeared from the window, and they heard his voice. "Back there, Teddy. Come on, boy. Good boy. Come on, out of there." The doorway cracked again, and the doorposts bent this time outwards as Grizzly Bear was pulled out backwards. Woman crawled from under the bed and came to the door. She was fearless, especially now God had arrived. She was also curious. God met her at the doorway. He handed her the human baby wrapped in a giant orchid of speckled purple. She gave a gasp and clasped it tightly. "Oh God," was all she could say. And now she was crying, but this time with joy, not fear. God smiled and turned to Grizzly Bear, who was sitting in the middle of the garden. Man came from under the bed and looked out over the woman's shoulders. The sun had just set over the forest, behind the bear. The red gold rays coming through the treetops from behind made him seem fringed with fire. His round ears were fringed with fire. Woman was happy. I'm very tempted to just get on a plane and go to Israel right now. I'm wanting to run away. I get like that. When I'm grief-stricken and officially activated and traumatised. I just want to run. I've never been to Israel though, and I'm running out of time. I'm 60 soon and I'm in poverty. But I wonder how much I'd get for my car. If I sold my car, I'd probably get, I don't know, it's old now, my car, maybe 4,000 or 5,000. I've already priced tickets to Israel return, 2,500 and something. It's quite cheap fares at the moment. But then I'd need money for accommodation. Wouldn't be able to afford anything flash. Have to go to an Airbnb or something like that. Probably I'd only be able to go for a week or two because no money. No fucking money. But if I sold my car, I might have just enough money for a return flight and for a week's accommodation somewhere cheap in Israel. Would I be safe in Israel, babies? Not really. But I would have liked to have gone to see Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and I would have liked to have gone to Eilat, and I would have liked to have seen the Dead Sea, and I would have liked to have had a look at Masada, and where else would I have liked to have gone? Maybe Haifa as well. Anyway, I wouldn't have enough money to travel all over Israel, would I? Only $5,000 or $6,000 with accommodation and food. So I'm psychedelic dreaming again. Always dreaming, always wishing and hoping. But it would be nice just to do something, just for once in my life, just something really out of the ordinary and actually see a foreign place and be in a foreign culture and experience the world, and it would be nice to be in the Holy Land. It would be nice. But would I be safe there? Am I safe here? No. Anyway, if the Holy One wished me to travel, he'd make sure I won lotto or something, ridiculous like that, because I can't afford to travel under normal circumstances. But it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? And then I could maybe skip over to Egypt and see, the Gaza Plateau and the pyramids. Oh, I'd love that. I'd love to see the pyramids. And to go to Petra in Jordan, that would be interesting too. Maybe even go to Turkey and see Göbekli Tepe. And I'm getting greedy now. There's no way I could afford to see all those things. I'm getting greedy. I'm dreaming the psychedelic dream. Oh, Goddess bless. Well, what else have I got going on? No sex, no real love, only tricksters and deceivers and players. Shit, man. It's enough to make you just want to run and run and run as far as you can and never come back, but ultimately Mama T has to hold her line and just got nowhere else to go anyway. Stay in this house till I die, and I'll have to make peace with that and accept it, won't I? While at the same time dreaming about travelling to all the sacred sites. Oh, well. Funny, Tanya. Funny. We must remember we'll laugh later. Long and loud and histrionically. Why not? Good old belly laugh is needed. Anyway. The sun had just set over the forest behind the bear, the red gold rays coming through the treetops from behind. Oh, I've read that. Made him seem fringed with fire. His round ears were fringed with fire. Woman was happy. She smiled happily at the bear. It looked like a big fat dog, quite friendly. Look at his lovely ears, she said. Aren't they sweet? Isn't he sweet? Man pushed his brows up crookedly and pulled his mouth crookedly down. He thought Grizzly Bear was pretty scary in any light. Could not forget his big shock and what he had gone through under the bed. Pardon me. His ears are all right, he said. It's the rest of him I'm not so sure about. God led Grizzly Bear into the forest, and man and woman watched them go, fringed with fire. I want one, woman said suddenly. What? Cried man. What now? A bear, she said. He was afraid that's what she meant. No, he shouted. No, no. Anything you like, but not that. I draw the line at a bear. Only a little one, she cried. It needn't be alive. Just a little cuddly friend for this one. She laid her baby in the cradle so she could look at it there. Yes, there it actually was, moving its fingers. Man did not want her going to ask God for a bear, so he made one, a very small bear. Nothing like God's Grizzly, of course, just a baby-size furry bear. For eyes it had lumps of amber and round woolly-looking ears. Woman sat this little bear at the foot of her baby's cradle, looking at the baby. "Here's Teddy," she said. Her baby screwed up its mouth and blew a bubble. Snake under the floorboards had not moved, only it no longer smiled. Its eyebrows had come down over its eyes in a hard, cross frown. Which will be the look on my dead face if I never make it to Israel, Europe, or some exotic location before I die, because what a fucking waste of a life that will have been. Trapped in this fucking hellscape for nearly, in August it will be, 37 years. Besides, if I make it to Israel, I might meet a wonderful Jewish man. Not an Israeli though. Israelis and I don't mix. They always try to kill me, Israeli men. That's why I said, will I be safe if I go to Israel? But you know, there's lots of tourists go to Israel. Americans, Canadians, English, Irish, Scottish. Surely there'll be a lovely Jewish man there, some other nationality. Maybe a Russian Jew, Russian men. Like my Slavic face because it's Polish and they think I'm Russian. There's hope for me in Israel, you know. There's hope. I could go to Sfard and sit amongst all the Kabbalists and pray and be mystical. I don't have to do that in Israel, though. I can do that here if I wanted to. Get religious again. Be a nudnik to God. Hashem, would you like me to nudge you again like I used to? Did you ever stop, baby cakes? No, I did not. I'm still kvetching. I'm still krexing. I'm still dreaming. I'm still yearning. When are you going to let me have my true beloved one? No, perhaps it's not such a good idea thinking about it. I had a Jewish husband. He wasn't very nice. I had Jewish Israeli lovers. They weren't very nice either. I had an Ethiopian Jewish lover. Devilishly handsome though, but a demon. Not nice. Then I had, this is spread out over many years, people, because I've been celibate for many years. By the gods. Then I had a series of non-Jewish lovers. Not one of them was nice. I mean, they were all very charming in the beginning, They all wanted in on the Tanya's mojo, mana. Oh, did they want in? Once they got in, couldn't wait to get out again. Cowards and curs that they were. The Englishman comes to mind. Oh, was he weak and inept. Weak and inept. And of course there was, Courtney the drug addict. Weak, piss weak. So piss weak and inept, had to get his friends to threaten me with a samurai sword. Couldn't even do his own threatening, the sad little, Welsh, New Zealand, Australian motherfucker. But let's be fair, it did keep my car going for a while. It was a very transactional relationship. Very transactional. Who else was there? Let me think. That was really about it. I only had 4 boyfriends in my life, actual boyfriends. Well, one was a husband, my first boyfriend I married. It's not really bad innings, Kind of kept myself as pristine as possible, given after each life-threatening horror put me off falling in love or having sex ever again. So years and years and years would go by before I'd allow myself to fall in love again. And here we are again. At least this time there was no sex and there was no crossing that line, because I knew not to go there actually. But I still fell in love and I still got played, so there is that. So what do you reckon, people of Earth? Get on a one-way flight to Israel and never fucking come back? Destiny. Some things come down to destiny. It's time I took charge of my life anyway. Sitting here slowly dying alone in this house that isn't even mine, and threatened by neighbours and cyclones and getting raped by, sexually assaulted by women in clubs who were just filthy. What the fuck was that about actually? I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's just the most ghastly thing. The most ghastly thing. When you're not safe with the men, now you have to worry about the women. Then there's another thing trawling after me because she wants a mutual friend. I'll let them have each other. I have no interest in their tawdry little games. None whatsoever. So yes, maybe I won't go to Israel. It's too dangerous. It's constant skirmishes and wars and too much danger. What about maybe Mama T, maybe I should go somewhere really exotic like Bolivia. What's Bolivia like this time of year? Mexico? I'd do well in Mexico. I know that for a fact, babies. Oh, I've had married Mexican men after me and single Mexican men after me in my day. Oh, they're passionate people. I had to fend them both off in their day because too passionate and not suitable. Not suitable at all for the Mama T. I need a man who's passionate but loyal and faithful with eyes only for me. Not passionate and dragging his penis like slime through every fucking hole he can find. Ooh, and ooh. Anyway, on that note, we're going to read another story. Mi amores. The last of the dinosaurs. Yes, 2 more stories to go. The last of the dinosaurs. I could go to Scotland. Scottish men are quite passionate too. But I don't know. We're a weakened generation. We've all been dulled down and dumbed down and made weak by and all the poisons in our food and our air and the blue light. I shared a video from Danny Jones. What was it called? I shared it this morning. I've shared it before too. It's very fucking chilling. about what's gone wrong with us.
Australia's cost of living pressures
No. I recommend you all watch it, by the way. Exiled Brain Surgeon, DARPA Mind Control, Quantum Biology and Sunlight Medicine. Dr. what was his name? Jack Krause, I think. Very interesting. But it's why I can't find, a human man capable of being a man to me, because they're all toxic and poisoned and degenerated and whittled down. And let's be fair, since I caught COVID in October, I've changed too. I'm vulnerable and but fragile and constantly traumatized and reactivated, and then I get over it and then something triggers me off again. And I actually think I was doing quite okay before then, before October 23. I mean, I was grieving my dog, horrendously grieving my dog, but I was kind of holding things together. But the last 12 months, is it 12 months? Yeah, since that brawl I had in the club that I go to that I love that club, and they were very kind to me, protective of me. But since I had that brawl on the 12th of July, which was actually, it's since I started CPAP therapy. The psychiatrist won't be happy since he paid for it and thought it would heal me, but it's made me vulnerable. It's made me weak and vulnerable and reactive and easily triggered and distressed, and I don't know why that is. It's meant to be saving my life and healing my bladder and gifting me longer continuance on this planet. But anyway, since that, I started that on the 4th of July, and then that terrible scene, which was really embarrassing, but boy, by the gods did I hold my own, as I do, on the 12th of July. And since then I've kind of gradually unravelled mentally. It's been a gradual process, but I've been watching it, been watching my own self kind of become a little bit untethered and unravelled, and then that horrible sexual assault from that female, that thing, that creature, his name was Michelle, happened, and then 2 days later Charlie died. Well, a morning and a night and a morning later, day and a half. And then that terrible fall happened. I just haven't come up for air. I haven't had a chance to heal myself and come up for air. And there's been really quite ugly, sadomasochistic, kind of fucking ugly comments made even by some of my closest friends, One made comments about my GP. I said to her, well, she goes to the same GP that I was going to. Oh, he's so good to me, he's so helpful to me, he's a wonderful doctor. I said, really? You wanted to charge me $200 to remove a cyst? I said, why was he so awful to me? Do you know what she said to me? She said, it's because of the way you speak to people. Maybe if you'd spoken to him more kindly, he'd be a better doctor to you. Gaslighting, victim blaming and shaming. I was never rude or disrespectful or dishonouring to that doctor, ever. In fact, it was he who was rude and disrespectful and dishonouring to me, wanting to haggle to remove a cyst. So I've been thinking a lot about that too. This woman has been my friend for 36 years. She's not my friend anymore. To say that to me, to blame me, that I can't find a decent doctor to treat me properly, it's not a friend anymore. So I'm also grieving that too. I'm grieving. And my other close friend was very I made a video about it and I kind of made a joke about it and was lighthearted about it. But the behaviours when we went on our last day trip was very alienating, running ahead and leaving me on my own, almost like I had some form of fucking leprosy. Wasn't all that nice either, to be honest. So, since all my friends are all fully vaccinated and they now look at me as some kind of leper, probably because I smell different or still have my own pristine to a point, because I did catch COVID, but I still have my own kind of pheromones. They all look at me and act towards me as if I'm somehow the enemy or the other. And, I've been treated like that even in my own Brisbane Jewish community here, like the other, like the enemy, for fucking decades. So it's very confronting when my closest friends, who are family to me, that I trust with my life, now speak to me or treat me like that too. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't know what to make of it. And I've been holding on to them so zealously because they're my family. They're my only family I have left, apart from my cousin I speak to in New Zealand and my cousin in Cairns, who I speak to very rarely. They're my family, and they've been turned too. Turned. And it wasn't me that turned them. It's that thing inside their bodies. I'm watching them all turn. People I've loved wholeheartedly and loyally, faithfully, all my life. Well, not all my life, but a big fucking chunk of my life. 36 years and 33 years. They're not the same. And maybe I'm not the same either anymore. It's chilling, people of Earth. It's not survivable. Really isn't. It's had this fantasy of moving, going on holidays to some foreign place. And you know what? It'll just be more of the same because it's global. There's nowhere safe for me now. I'm an oddity, even more an oddity than I ever was before, because I don't carry that in my bloodstream. That thing they forced upon us for donuts and football tickets. Evil it was and still is. Now I'm dealing with the fallout. I predicted that would happen 5 years ago. I just didn't think it would happen quite so soon. So I'm watching my world die and I'm participating in a dying world while I'm simultaneously trying not to die myself. It's a bit astonishing, people there. Anyway, let me continue with the stories. Only 2 left, and then we'll have completed reading this wonderful book. And in the early days, God made some strange creatures. New ideas were quite hard to find. When he thought up a clam, for instance, he went on for ages, simply making different kinds of clams, or things very like clams, such as mussels, oysters, razor shells, and so on. And when he suddenly got the idea for a worm, he went wild, filling up the rivers and lakes and seas and lands, with different kinds of worm. It seemed he might never make anything else except worms. But in the end, he got bored and suddenly thought of spiders. When he thought of dinosaurs, he said, "This is it. This is perfection. I'll never get a better idea." He stuck to dinosaurs for an incredible number of years. And every day he thought up a new one. Actually, each new one was quite like the old ones, but he'd give it more horns, or a longer neck, or twice as much armour plating, or make it 5 times as big. As he finished these creations, they lumbered out from under his hands and ran onto the plains, heads up, looking for trouble. God's dinosaurs were all the same in one thing. They were a very fierce lot. They spent their time attacking each other and eating each other. The big ones ate the little ones. The little ones ate the big ones. The whole world was a battle of dinosaurs. Wherever a dinosaur looked, he saw dinosaurs fleeing from him with squawks, or dinosaurs rushing towards him with snarls. They were tirelessly fierce. Stop speaking in Hebrew to me. I don't speak Hebrew and it's irritating, and I'm reading a story to the people of Earth. Thank you. Dear goodness. I wonder what got him all activated all of a sudden. Honestly. It's like the ghost of Mrs. Muir, except not quite as charming, because he's an enemy of mine. Get out of my house, Dubuk. You're not welcome here, you know that. Where were we? Holding it together on planet Earth, in a dying civilization. Goodness. It's yelling at me, forgive, forgive, you need to forgive, it's not their fault. No, I'm conscious of this. I'm trying to be very forgiving, but I'm not Jesus, okay? And there are some things that are unforgivable. Playing me for a fucking gimp and a fool. Evil and cruel it is. Shh, Tanya, he says. Look, you're not my matchmaker. You're not fit to be in my company. Go back to the light. I don't know why they pop out, these spirits, when I'm busy doing my readings. They don't annoy me when I'm not doing anything like this. They just want, like naughty children, full attention, and all the attention to be brought back on them. Just flipping on the screen. And they're just pesky, like pesky little gnats. I love you, he says. Whatever. In a million, trillion, quadrillion, gazillion years. That entity has no concept of what real love is. None of my lovers ever did. Just walking phalanges is all they were. Walking phalanges. Occasionally they could be a little bit charming till they got what they wanted, but really they were just a walking bit of gristle. No substance, nothing. Even Jared jokes about how he used to attract men with great hair. He said, "You're in love with wigs, Tanya. There's no substance under that hair." And I used to laugh because it was true. And now he runs away from me when we go on our little outings. Run, run, rabbit, run. I love you, Jared. You're my brother and you'll be my brother till the day we both die. But I've seen the running behaviours. It's Mama T who should be running now. Running, screaming, bare-breasted into the into the void like mine. I'll show you, it's from Picasso. This is how it should be. Deux femmes courant sur la plage. Two women running on the beach. 1922. The Race. Pablo Picasso. This is what I should be doing. Running, screaming, joyously, bare-breasted, wild and free. I'm doing it right now in my mind. It's all happening in my mind. Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is, my beloved ones, my sweet ones. My magical, delightful, wonderful, poisoned ones. It's not your fault. It's not my fault either. I did try to save you. I did try. I swear to before all the gods I tried. This platform silenced me. And Facebook and Instagram, all was I silenced. And now, this is what has left me. Next year in Jerusalem. Won't have money next year either. Well, I could. Miracles could happen. Let's not be too negative, babies. Anyway, where was I? Baruch hu haba. No one asked for your opinion, Davidson. Go, Geishan. Drives me nuts. As he finished these creations, they lumbered out from his hands and ran onto the plains, heads up, looking for trouble. God's dinosaurs were all the same in one thing. They were a very fierce lot. They spent their time attacking each other and eating each other. The big ones ate the little ones. The little ones ate the big ones. The whole world was a battle of dinosaurs. Wherever a dinosaur looked, he saw dinosaurs fleeing from him with squawks, or I've read that already, or dinosaurs rushing towards him with snarls. They were tirelessly fierce, and the noise was terrific. Every kind of cry, from twitterings like swallows to screechings like elephants. Some dinosaurs were smaller than swallows and some were bigger than elephants, even though they looked more or less alike with their steely claws, their strong hind legs, and their horrible dinosaur eyes. Those were early days, and God did not know the world had become such a shocking place. He was too busy making new dinosaurs to think about what the old ones were getting up to. All that interested him was my next dinosaur. But he was finding it harder and harder to think up new ones, and one day he was stuck. He was making his latest model, but somehow it wouldn't come out right. All is not lost, Tanya. Thank you. I will accept that message because it's positive, but you're interrupting again. He rolled it into a ball and started again. It still wouldn't come out right. Do not despair, Tanya. He pounded it into a lump with his fist and started again. It still wouldn't come out right. He slapped it flat with his hand, sighed, laid his arm on his workbench and his head on his arm, and fell asleep. Love is still available to you, Tanya. Such a liar. He woke up almost at once with a start. What had wakened him? He blinked and started to model the clay again. Then he stopped. A strange brown creature sat up in the middle of the workshop floor, licking its chest. It was quite small, the size of a thrush. It had a round face, round eyes, round ears, a round belly, a round bum, and funny little hands. God reached down and picked it up. It was soft, furry. It was the first furry thing God had ever felt. What are you? He asked, and he looked at the creature with its eyes as round and wondering as its own. It looked back at him and wiggled its whiskers. I'm a kind of bush baby, it said. Bush baby? God was very puzzled. What is that? A baby from under a bush, the creature replied. He came from under a bush? You came from under a bush, asked God. Now tell me, where did you come from? Truly? You dreamed me, said the bush baby, in your bushy head. God scratched his chin. I know I never entered your thoughts, bush baby went on, because you were so busy trying to think up horrible dinosaurs. But you did dream me, so here I am. Sometimes you do dream things into manifestation. Sometimes you do, babies. Sometimes the most wonderful dreams really do come true. Yes, God remembered now. He'd dreamed of a green bush, and something had shaken the leaves, and out of the bush had crept this very creature. He was fascinated. A totally new idea. Soft furry beings. In no time at all, he stopped making dinosaurs. Now he was on to soft furry creatures. All his dinosaurs suddenly looked old-fashioned and stupid. What a waste of time, he thought. I've made far too many. But then he saw what happened to his new creatures. In the world of the dinosaurs, they didn't stand a chance. Those terrible, steely killers, with their terrible speed and their terrible jaws full of fangs, tore the soft furry beings to bits or simply swallowed them whole. God heard his new inventions crying at night in the trees where they huddled together. But they weren't safe, even in the highest trees. Speedy, small dinosaurs, nimbler than any squirrel, came ripping up through the leaves, and with stunning screams threw them down to earth where other dinosaurs waited. Or flying dinosaurs came cruising up, and with a grab and a flap, snatched them away, eating them as they flew like sandwiches. God felt pity for his little furry ones. I've filled the earth, he thought, with monsters. I simply have to get rid of them. They'll have to go. I want the earth to be safe for my furry beings. So he set about wiping out his dinosaurs. A demon from under the earth heard what was going on. He rose like a puff from a volcano and appeared before God as a creature from outer space. God was pleased to see him. He asked for cosmic news, and the demon invented some. Then the demon came to the point. Now you're scrapping your dinosaurs, he said. We thought you might sell a few cheap. On our planet, we only have fungus. Too late, said God. I doubt if there's one left. When I do a job, I'm thorough. Sorry about that. If I find one, can I have it? Asked the demon. There might be just the odd one left. So long as I never see it again, it's yours, said God. But you won't find one. I made my gaze deadly and I let it rest on the valleys and the plains and poof, nothing but fossils. I'll just have a look around, said the demon, if that's all right. Look in the caves, shouted God after him. The demon was already speeding to the caves, and there in a deep tunnel, excuse me, protected from God's deadly gaze, he found a pterodactyl still alive. It's a lovely thought, isn't it? There is a story about them breaking into a rock and a pterodactyl coming out, staying alive for a few moments before it died. Weird. Apparently a true story too. Anyway, weird things can happen like that. Then Mama can find her own true love one day and enough money to travel the world. Oh, smallest violin. Probably more hope of a pterodactyl bursting out of a rock still alive before it descends into its ultimate demise. But like my love life. Gets kick-started every now and then and just sizzles and fizzles and it's a tragedy. It really is. It's a tragedy. Do you know why it's a tragedy? Because when I'm not being an almighty fucking bitch, which I can be at times, if called upon, if it's necessary, I'm actually a wonderful, delightful, charming, entertaining, warm, passionate, romantic, loving woman. Who knew? Anyway, we won't be bitter. I'm too young to be bitter. I'll save that if I should live any much longer. Maybe I'll get rancid and snaky and vicious and crotchety, in my 70s and 80s like my evil fucking mother before me. No, she'd always been a bitch. Always. Probably even in childhood, to be fair. So, she was brutalised by my grandmother, so there is that. But I'm not a bad person, actually. I deserve better than the life that was gifted me. I really do. So sometimes I do get a little bit bitter at times. And I must try, to pull myself up from that, because it's dead energy, it's stagnant energy, and it's toxic as fuck. And No one wants to be around a bitter, rancid old woman. They want good times and, mischief and childlike wonder and what have you. You just leave the what have you up to your imagination, babies. Could be so many what's having you and what's not having you and what will never be had again. So you fuck up and you fuck me over royally. I'm done and I'm dusted. Why am I so upset actually over this nonsensical barmicide? Why? Why am I so upset? It's kind of ridiculous. This dinosaur had immense wings, a crocodile head, and terrible dinosaur eyes that were mad with hunger. Is it safe yet up there? Asked the dinosaur. Let me see, it's autumn here now, so it would be spring in Israel. Actually, it's nearly Passover. If I flew to Israel now, I'd be there for spring and Passover. That'd be a bit special, wouldn't it? Where does God want me to be next? Who does God want for me? Is there even a God anymore? Starting to wonder. It's taken me 60 years to start to lose faith in God. That's how much damage has been done to me, people of Earth. But there's God in all manifestations. I'm looking at it right now. The trees and the wind and the banana leaves and my own fiery attitude reigniting and supercharging from deep in the bowels of my soul. That too is God-like, not giving up even when more logical and sensible souls would have given up long, long ago. Is it safe yet up there? Asked the dinosaur. The demon had brought him a bush baby, and as the dinosaur gulped and swallowed, you mustn't give up. Okay, Davidson, whatever. And as the dinosaur gulped and swallowed, he told him that the happy days on earth were finished. The moment God sees you, he said, you are extinct. I'm afraid your day's past, but I can help you. I have a job for you. And so the demon housed the pterodactyl in a great cave under a mountain. You are blessed. Why are you talking to me now? Why? It's inappropriate. Each day he brought him a furry bear, or a snake, or a lizard to eat, and the pterodactyl's job was to guard the demon's gems. These gems were the demon's only food. The demon was gathering all the gems in the world and all the precious metal, the gold, the silver. He worked night and day till the sweat trickled down his back and dripped off his stumpy tail. He leaned against the wall. I have to get it all, he explained to the pterodactyl. Before man comes, man will want it all. When he comes, I shall have to fight him for every jewel. And now that God's invented the bush baby, man won't be long a-coming. Oh no, he's on his way right now. And when he comes, I shall need a guardian. I shall need you. This man you speak about, said the pterodactyl, will he be a sort of bush baby? Bigger, said the demon, meatier, and woman, his mate, meatier still. Kind of have to smile at that. Oh, well, some of us are meatier than others, just say. The Oh, God is blessed. The pterodactyl's eyes did not change as he smiled with his 4-foot-long row of fangs. This, he thought, is better than lying flat among the fossils. And pretty soon man arrived, and soon after him woman. On the third day man found a jewel, and when he gave it to woman she jerked her head back, and her mouth opened like a baby bird's. More, she cried. More. Please, sir, I want some more. A week later she found a little nugget of gold in a stream where she was searching for pretty pebbles. She came to man. This stuff, she said, it's magic. Look at it. And when God looked at the nugget of gold, he felt the weirdest sensation. His palms were suddenly wet with sweat. A shiver crept up his back. His teeth ground together, and he gripped her wrist. He gripped it so tight that her fingertips swelled red as cherries. Then, very gently, with the finger and thumb of his other hand, he took the little lump of gold from her, and he gazed at it. It was shaped like popcorn. And as he gazed, his brow tightened its wrinkles till it resembled a clenching fist pressing down over his eyes, and his chin trembled. Where did you find this? He whispered. It's mine, she cried. Finders keepers. And she snatched it back. So they had their first fight. And when man had won and hidden the gold, he told her, I only want to make it safe. Now let's find more together. Jewels too, she said. You have the gold, and I'll be quite happy with just the jewels. How about that? The demon, sitting in a bush, smiled. He had worked hard and well. He knew the earth was almost empty of gold and gems. They were all in his cave, under the pterodactyl. It's a good place to hide your goodies, I guess. As good a place as any. He then slipped across to the hiding place, took the lump of gold, and ate it. Another puzzle for man. He laughed, and as he soared back to his cave, he snatched a snake off a rock for his pet. Man came to God and complained. There was no gold, there were no jewels, or so little it was making his wife sick. He needed the gold and jewels. Yes, and silver too, for her health. And what bit of gold he had found had vanished. God couldn't understand it. The earth should be full of all these things, he said. What's happened to them? When God asks a question, something has to answer. And now it was a snake that stuck its head out of a hole in a tree and cried, "The demon collected the whole lot. The demon's plundered the earth. It's all in his cave under the mountain, and he guards it with that horrible pterodactyl that ate my mother and father." God's eyebrows rose. He had to laugh. So that's what the creature from outer space had been. And out of his laugh came a brainwave. He frowned, raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. In that second, all the gems, all the lumps of gold and silver in the demon's cave melted like a colossal heap of snow, and they flowed out into the rivers of the world as streams of fishes. Every kind of fish was created there in that flashing snap of the fingers. The pterodactyl floundered and screeched, then flapped up onto a cave ledge. The demon stared. Then he understood. His cry shattered that mountain, and out of his cry came a burst of magic power. He changed the pterodactyl into a bird no bigger than a goose. The long neck was still there, and the long mouth, but the bird had feathers and strange, long legs. "Go wade in the rivers," the demon shouted. "Save my treasures. Find my treasures. Go, go." The pterodactyl bird flapped up out of the cave and sailed over the rivers of the earth. Everywhere, under the windy ripples, he saw the glimmerings of the fish, the glints and flashings as they turned. "Gather them!" yelled the demon, flying above him. "You stay as you are till you've gathered them all." So there he is. But how can he gather them all? He wades along the edges of rivers, peering down. Now and again he jabs, and now and again he does come up with something. But it's never a jewel, never a lump of gold or silver. It is bright, maybe, but it is never anything but a fish. So he swallows it, and sometimes, remembering his happier days, he grabs a lizard or a snake or even a water rat, and he swallows it. Man has called him heron. And when he flies up with his broken-looking, ponderous wings and lets out his cry, his awful, skrarking gawk, he reminds you of a pterodactyl. And when you see him close up and get a good look at his terrible little eye, you know for certain he is one. The next story is called The Secret of Man's Wife. It's the last story of this book. So, it's another mission that the Tanya, Mama T, the psychedelic dreamer, I have completed. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Apart from my wee little segues and interruptions from a man that still haunts occasionally. I don't know why. I don't know why. I really don't. I know why he just yelled out. I'm helping you. Which echelon of hell are you helping me into, Davidson? Go back to your original source. Help me. Help me. Farcical, isn't it? Once again, God had dreamed a startling dream, and once again, when he woke, he'd forgotten it. What was it? He sat at his workbench, staring at a knot in one of his floorboards. Did I not say all was not lost? Why don't you believe me, Tanya? Because I'm seeing evidence to the contrary. That's why I'm working on evidence, Davidson. Sorry about that. Something dazzling had appeared in his sleep. Something to do with man. He was still puzzling, trying to coax his dream back, when he realized that somebody was standing in the open doorway of his workshop. He looked up and saw man wearing the most woebegone expression. God took a deep breath. Another complaint. When would man come to him without a complaint? But he shot up his eyebrows, smiled with delight, and cried, Man, how are the carrots coming on? Man licked his lips. He lifted his face for a second, and God felt a little pang of pity as he glimpsed the awful toiling difficulties behind the brown eyes. Then man's gaze sank again to the floor, as if the weight of his troubles were too great to hold up. What's the matter? Cried God. Has something been digging them out? It's not the carrots, said man. They're fine. It's my wife again. God nodded. And waited. Now he thought, here comes the complaint. She's restless, said man. God waited. In fact, man went on, she's become altogether peculiar. God raised his eyebrows. He was always interested to hear about his creations. They were full of surprises. So what's new? He asked in an easy voice, reaching for a bit of clay. How is she peculiar? Can you explain? Asked man. Why she is always looking past me? God frowned and rolled the clay between his thumb and forefinger. She's always looking towards the forest, said man, as if she were expecting somebody. She leans on the doorposts and stares at the forest. She's always sort of waiting. God waited. Then said man, when I'm doing something, repairing my sandals or carving a new paddle, I feel this weird, chilly feeling, and I look up and she's watching me. She's not looking at me in a normal way. She's watching me out of the corners of her eyes with a look a very strange look, as if I can't explain it. And the moment I see it and ask her, what's the matter? She gets up and goes out. She goes off somewhere into the forest. God stroked his beard. What does she do there? He wondered aloud. I think, said man, she meets somebody. And she laughs. She has this laugh. It's not a happy laugh. A completely peculiar laugh. She laughs, showing all her teeth, then starts somersaulting all over the garden. Which makes me think of this dreadful woman that used to come to the live wire bar, that when she got drunk would roll over, do roly-polies all over the floor. Big fat lumbering oaf it was, roly-poly. It was bizarre people, most bizarre. Oh, and was she vicious and competitive over that dreadlocked nitwit too? I developed quite a hatred for those two, and I don't normally hate people. I might dislike them. I might find them moderately contemptuous or disdainful. It's very hard to make me actually hate anyone. Seriously, you have to be quite savage and vicious to me over quite a long period of time before I really can say, right, now I hate you with a passion. It was quite funny actually. One time my friend Adam came up to me. He says, Tanya, how did he put it? It's a very strange thing to say actually. He said, you don't like that person over there. I think it might have even been her. I said, oh really? Is it that obvious? He said, yes. He said, and what's even more surprising, Tanya, he said, I've never seen you be mean to anyone in this club ever, and you've been coming here for years. I said, yes, that's correct. No need to be mean to anyone. Might not like them, but just carry on doing my own thing, dancing. I've got no interest in being cruel and sadistic and vicious to anyone. If I don't like you, I don't like you. I'm entitled to not like you. I've earned that privilege usually by being pushy or obnoxious or getting up in my face when I've made it clear I'm not particularly fond of you, but by the gods. Anyway, he said to me, I've never in all these years ever seen you be mean to anyone ever. He said, I'm very impressed with you actually, because they've all been really, really awful to you over many, many years. Yes, I said, Adam, now you get it. Two wrongs don't make a right. I rise above the arrant evil bullshit most of the time, unless you catch me on a bad day when I'm a bit triggered or they trigger me, you know, then all hell breaks loose. But usually I'm just like, nah, can't be bothered. Can't be bothered with idiots. But anyway, it just made me think, I used to call her Teletubby, which was like a oafish Teletubby, no couth and no class. Just, oh. How could you even describe it really? Don't think it had much of a brain either. It's just a mouth-breathing, amoeba osmosing thing. Oh, that's right. Her other trick was she used to sink her tongue down every man's mouth that came to the casino, which I'd just stand there and I'd be like, bleh, bleh, because some of those men weren't very clean, just saying. Not all. Most of them were just, ordinary blokes, but some of them were utterly repulsive. And she did not discriminate. She would sink her tongue down any of them. And they all thought being men, it was marvellous. And, being French kissed by some Teletubby strumpet. I still have to laugh to this day. Oh, I just look at it in horror. I'd actually start laughing. And I'd try to hide it because I didn't want to be cruel, like they're happy, being kissed. Adam came up to me. She kisses all the men in the casino. We love it. I said, oh yeah, well, whatever floats your boat, mate. I said, but have you thought about it? What do you mean, Tanya? That tongue's been through everything and everyone. And who have they been through before she came along? And now she's sinking it down your throat. He thought about it. He actually went pale. No, I didn't think about that, Tanya. I said, oh, I don't want to rain on your parade, Adam, but by the gods, have some dignity. And even he looked at me and kind of had to laugh too. It was that horrific. It really was. Anyway. Mama T has not passionately kissed a man in many, many years. Way even before the COVID madness started, but part of that was, too, wasn't interested in anyone. And, the last man I passionately kissed was fucking vapid NPC monster with a Teletubby for a friend. So it puts you off. Really put me off. So, I've kissed my male friends on the cheek, just sisterly kisses on the cheek, and maybe occasionally a little, childlike, quick peck on the lips, but nothing of a lascivious, passionate, sexual nature at all. And, it's all very boring, actually. It's very boring. Maybe I should do something about that. Find a man who's a good kisser and take a lover. It's probably long past time. What am I waiting for? Like the song. What are you waiting for? Maybe to go to Israel, somewhere exotic where, have a fresh start, where I can be free to be my own natural, gorgeous, abundant, luscious sexual self without all these fucking NPC zombie fucking false creeps. Dear goddess. Probably won't happen though, so we won't be waiting for that. What's that young lad doing? He's come from school, he's going round and round in circles, up and down, up and down. Teenage boys. They're their own version of loveliness, aren't they, darlings? Anyway, where were we? Then she starts somersaulting all over the garden. Oh yes, it always brings that instant memory. I mean, you have to laugh. You have to laugh, people. Then she starts crying. She sits there sobbing. God frowned. This certainly was pretty strange. Who do you think she meets in the forest, he asked. Man stared at him. I think, he said, I think she meets your wolf. God stood up and slapped his hands together, flattening the clay into a leaf. What an idea, he cried. What makes you think that? That's a crazy idea. But man went on, still staring at God, so that God did just wonder for a second whether man had gone a wee bit crazy. I keep getting this feeling, he said, that my wife wants to be a wolf. Woman who runs with wolves, are we right? I have a wolf spirit animal. Haven't seen him lately, actually. I wonder where he's gone. Some other dimension, busy being spirit wolf. But look out if I whistle him down. Boys, you're in imminent danger if I do. Don't unleash my wolf lightly. Anyway, where was I? Now it was God's turn to stare. He was stuck for words. Wonder if it was my wolf that made that silly cow do Teletubby type somersaults all over the live wire bar floor. You never know. It could be a bit of a prankster, my wolf. It's got a great sense of humour. Oh, the things that used to make me laugh in that place. I'll read something to you when I finish. It came up in today's memory and it's hilariously delightful. Remind me. Oh, you can't remind me because you're in your dimension on the other side of the screen. I'll remind myself. Right, read to them today's memory. Anyway, nearly every night, cried man, I dream she's a wolf running in the forest, or she's a wolf with its forepaws on my bed, staring down at me, and I wake up, and do you know what? God was almost afraid of what he was going to hear. She's pacing up and down the room, panting, and I'll swear, in the dark, her tongue's hanging out. Her Teletubby, ready, getting her tongue primed, for the next tonsil. Oh, it was a creature. Oh, it was an absolute vile creep. In fact, even to this day. I'm glad I dance in a space now where, occasionally people kiss each other, but they're in love, I don't mind that so much. People are actually in love. But, there's none of the sordid, foul behaviours. Or maybe I haven't noticed. Anyway. No, shouted God, you're dreaming it. Man paused for a while, his lips clamped. And then he added, there's a smell. God's brows twisted 2 or 3 different ways at once. What now? It's actually quite an exciting smell, man went on, but it's not exactly doggy, not exactly. They both became silent, staring at each other. God sat down. I'm going to run out of video. I have to read faster. Dear goddess. Where was I? Well, what can we do about it? Said God at last. What do you want? I've thought about it, said man. What have you thought? If you, said man, can extract from her whatever it is, whatever this wolfy thing is that makes her so peculiar, maybe we could have that as a whole separate animal, a sort of pet maybe, or maybe let it run wild, and that would leave my wife as she used to be, as you made her, nice and normal. Ha! God laughed and slapped his knee. Well, he thought, who knows what peculiar sort of creature will come out of her if what man says is true. Maybe I'll watch her a while for myself, said God, then decide. So God began to watch woman, and it was just as man had said. She had become peculiar, locking herself in man's cupboard, laughing and weeping till he got the bloody man on pause. Being there wasn't pleasant. And at the, probably still going through it if the truth be known, lately, a lot of laughing and weeping simultaneously. And at the full moon, she did more than pace the floor. She ran out into the forest, letting out short, awful laughs, more like shrieks than laughs. I need to have sex soon. I did not say that out loud. You did not hear that. Bing, bang, boom, baby. It's in your imagination. It wasn't put out there on the internet for the whole world to hear. Didn't hear that? I'm reeling that back in. Reeling it back in. Ready? Ding! Right, little fishies. Go swim, be free, be free, be free. Like the Tanya, magical, mystical juiciness. Because you can't handle it when you get it anyway. Boys, seriously. Too much woman. Just too much woman. It's how the gods created me from decades and decades and decades of trauma. Too much woman. And I'm okay with that. So when I say I feel like having sex, it's just a random thought. Just blows through one ear and out the other, and I just wave it goodbye. It's funny that that thought came on the tail end of me joking about the menopause, though, because menopause really is not a pleasant experience for most women. Right, where were we, people of Earth? Earthy, real, authentic, still pheromonal, alive in your own body, mind and spirits. People of Earth. She would come out next morning, worn out, scratched, muddy, and sleep for a whole day. At other times, especially at the new moon, she would pace about man's house, almost running, occasionally turning a few somersaults or breaking into a wild whirling dance, where she seemed to have several extra legs and arms, doing the most amazing tricks, like dancing for minutes on end. Is that all she can do? Tanya dances for hours on end. Oh well, I am part Polish and German, and unfortunately my forebears had incredible stamina, coming from Teutonic and Viking and Hun bloodlines, you understand. Not very nice people, genocidal, but stamina they had. It's probably where it comes from. Could come from my Irish, Scottish and English bloodlines too, because there was Viking and definitely Viking in the Scottish bloodlines. So I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. But when Mama dances, Mama dances. It is what it is, people of Earth. Her arms and... I mean, you have to laugh. You really do have to laugh. Oh, Alter Egos were playing on Saturday night. I'm sure, almost sure they were stirring me up a little bit, you know, because they're boys and they care. Babies. And anyway, they were playing that song, Alanis Morissette song. You ought to know, I had to think of the title. And when I did that, will she go down on you in a theatre? Will she have your baby? And I got my fan. I'm well past having babies, but I've still got the belly babies. And I went, will she have... And you know, performance artistry, hamming it up. And Scotty's playing guitar and just looking at me like this. I don't think they want me to do the performance art anymore, but they haven't got the courage to tell me. They want us to be all playful, fey and childlike and sweet, and I don't think I can do it. So I'm going to, you know, I'm going to move on. It's time. It's time. But the look on Scotty's face And will you scratch your nails on someone else's back? Will you feel it? Oh, he loves it when I dance like that. He really does. He hasn't said so, in words. But just the look on his face is priceless. I don't do it for that reason. I'm just dancing my dance. Emotion, all my emotions out to all the songs. Every song. But that one's quite potent. Anyway, I left not long after because I just wasn't really feeling the vibe, Sometimes it's like that, Mama T. When the vibe's not quite right, doesn't feel right, she has to go. Anyway. Dancing for minutes on end, her arms and legs spinning around in one blur on top of a tiny stool. I guess I could go back to the 5 rhythms dance on a Friday night, which goes from 7 to 9 once a fortnight. I went there a few times and I stopped going because it was too exhausting to go from there to the Brooklyn Standard that started at 11. And it meant like 5 hours of dancing, and it was actually too much for me. But now that everything's changed and my favourite bands are going to all different venues, and I guess I could go back and do my wild ecstatic dance there, and it's a bit more appropriate there too, emoting to everything because everyone else is doing exactly the same things. It's the space for it. It's encouraged, That might be the way to do it. And then I might meet a wonderful man there one day, you just never know. Last time I went there was an older man. Oh, he was keen on me. Oh, he was really keen on me. But, I wasn't interested because I was in love with someone else. And when I'm in love with someone, it takes me a while to detach and move on. But I observed that man was very keen on me. So, I could get over myself and go there and dance wildly and ecstatically and might see that gentleman again. He wasn't creepy, he was just keen. But I observed that he wasn't actually creepy, and I liked that about him actually. I thought if I weren't in love with someone else, he seemed like a nice enough fellow. So I stored that away for future reference. But the problem is, though, I'm not actually wanting a much older man. I'm sorry, older men, but, I need someone my age or a little bit younger, Just, I need someone with a lot of life force and vital energy. Although that gentleman at 5 Rhythms obviously has quite a bit of energy because his dancing, ecstatic dance type 5 Rhythms is similar to ecstatic dance. So it's got energy, all right, the boy chick. But it'll take me time before I completely detach and allow love again. It takes me sometimes years. It's why I get so distressed when things go ugly and tawdry and rancid and treacherous and sadistic, because it really does rob me of any joy for quite a long time, and I shouldn't even allow that to happen to me in the first instance, because I really deserve better than that. But it's how I'm wired and how my heart operates and my emotions, and it's no one's fault really. It's just how I am, a little bit unique and a little bit fucking wretched, quite frankly. But anyway, she's spinning her arms and legs around in one blur on top of a tiny stool, or bounding round the room from wall to wall without touching the floor, or scampering about the garden arched backwards with her face between her thighs at fantastic speed. Dear Goddess, got less than half an hour. God shook his head. He was baffled. Maybe man's idea was a solution, but whatever the crazy thing inside woman was, how was he going to get it out? He went to ask his old mother's advice. As he told her about woman, she seemed almost to go to sleep. She sat in her corner, her funny long hands folded over her head, and her head bowed. When he finished, he thought she really had dozed off, but suddenly she said, "It sounds like a demon." God gave a start. A demon? He was always forgetting about the demons. A demon's got into her, his mother said again, or if not a demon, something very like a demon. So what's to be done? Asked God. He felt quite helpless. Can't we get it out, whatever it is? And he sat there wondering just what kind of demon. Some sort of fly or worm? Demons can take any form. Then, speaking very slowly, his mother explained what had to be done. And that's your only hope, she said when she'd finished, and it might go wrong. God went to find woman. Instead, he found man stretched out on his bed, looking pale and ill. Man stared dully at God. She's gone off again, he said. What happened this time? Asked God. Nothing, said man. I only said, I love the black hairs on your legs. You know, you gave her a few sort of wispy dark hairs on her legs. God nodded. And she let out a terrible wail, said man, as if I'd reminded her of something dreadful, and she ran off into the forest. It's getting me down, God. Today, said God, we're going to fix this. And he set off into the forest. He followed her deep tracks in the soft jungle soil. She'd been running, her heels had made deep holes. Soon they came to harder ground and God had to use his sharp eyes. Suddenly he knew he was being followed. He slipped behind a great clump of lilies. And who should come along, bent double, inspecting his tracks, but woman. What a nice surprise, he cried, stepping out in front of her. But she had already fainted. He carried her to his workshop and sat her in a chair. Her head lolled, her limbs flopped. Wake up, he whispered, patting her cheeks. But she was still out cold. He stood scratching his head, but what could he do if she wouldn't wake up? He felt painfully sorry for her as she slumped there with her long eyelashes closed, her plump little mouth slightly open. Could his mother be right about her? Could she really be possessed by a demon? His favourite among all his creations? She looked so delicate and pretty. Just then his mother came in. Well, she cried, aren't you getting on with it? God pointed at woman. Shh, whispered. She fainted. I scared her. Huh, crowed his mother. Fainted? A likely tale. You don't know the tricks of these demons. Anyway, that's good. Makes it easier. Tie her to the chair. Woman stirred and moaned softly. Quick! His mother almost shrieked before she wakes up. God tied woman's limp arms and legs to the chair, and a rope tight round her waist. Tight to the chair, cried his mother. God did that too. And a gag, cried his mother. She gave him her own scarf. God tied the scarf round woman's mouth, gagging her. Now where's the clay? asked his mother. We've got to have the clay. God brought out a lump of clay, nicely soft, about the size of a pillow. He thumped it and kneaded it and shaped it roughly into a ball. Put that on the floor in front of her, ordered his mother. God did as he was told. Woman had opened her eyes. She stared wildly at God's mother. She knew about God, but God's mother. Man had never mentioned God's mother. She tried to cry out, "What are you going to do to me?" but only managed to gurgle. When she realized she couldn't speak, she was more frightened than ever. "Stoke up the furnace," cried God's mother. God began to shove logs into the great glowing doorway of the furnace at the back of his workshop. Woman rolled her eyes towards the jumping flames. "Build up a good big blaze," shouted his mother as the flames crackled into a roar. We want to get her red hot through and through. The heat can't be too fierce. White hot would be best. Woman now rolled her eyes towards God's mother, trying to make them scream for help. But God's mother bent over her only to say, "Are you wearing any jewels, my dear? If you are, we might as well have them. The flames will ruin them, and that would be a pity." Woman's eyes went dry with horror. She stared again at the flames, then at God's mother, and gurgled. She twisted in the ropes. Her toes and fingers writhed, but God's knots were good. "Bring out the anvil," cried God's mother, "so we've lots of room to swing the hammers." God lifted the massive iron anvil out into the middle of the room and leaned the two long-handled smith's hammers against it. His mother took hold of one of them and made a practice swing. She was immensely old, but that didn't make any difference to her power. As she whirled the hammer, everything in the workshop seemed to flinch. When the hammer hit the anvil, Woman's head bounced as her chair jolted and a spark stung her knee. Woman had now closed her eyes and tears poured over her cheeks into her gag. Were these two actually going to shove her into the furnace and make her red hot and then pound her with those hammers as if she were a horseshoe? She tried to faint again, but she couldn't. God and his mother were inspecting the ball of clay. "It should do," his mother said, poking it. "You see, there has to be somewhere, some bolt hole for her good angel to go. We don't want to hurt that, do we? So we make a hole in the clay here, then her good angel can dive into it out of harm's way." God made a hole in the clay, pushing his fist into the middle of the ball. "That's enough," said his mother. "I've done this before. As we slide her head first into the furnace, and as the flames get a really good grip on her, her good angel will come whizzing out. You won't see it, but it will dive into that clay. There it will be absolutely safe. Then we'll simply roast her old body to a crusty crisp in the flames and pound it to dust with our hammers, and that will be the end of the mischief. It's quite easy. You can wet the dust and make fresh clay for something else afterwards." Woman's eyes seemed to want to leap out of her head and through the window. Her hair stuck out on end all round her face. Then she stared at the clay ball. At the dark hole, in the clay ball. Then at the raging and throbbing glare of the furnace's open door. Then at the anvil. Sorry, I've got him. Keeps saying over and over again, Israel, Israel is taunting me. Israel, Israel. I don't have enough money to go to Israel. I'd have enough money for the airfare return, but what would I do for accommodation and food? And if things went wrong, I'd be completely stuck. No, Mama T's not going anywhere. I'll just have to look at pictures of Israel on the internet. Pray a lot and manifest a lot. And one day it might happen. Anyway, it's all very silly, isn't it? I'm being called home is what's really happening. Home, the other Israel, the Zion in the sky. That's where I'm really going, people of earth. I actually already kind of know it. It's been too much horror and disappointments. It's not survivable living in this planet anymore. But yet, rather ironically and foolishly and determinately, I keep surviving. It's grinding my gears. Trust me on that one. Anyway, where was I? Then we'll simply roast her old body to a crusty crisp in the flames and pound it to dust with our hammers, and that will be the end of the mischief. It's quite easy. You can wet the dust and make fresh clay for something else afterwards. Woman's eyes seemed to want to leap out of her head and through the window. Her hair stuck out on end all round her face. Then she stared at the clay ball, at the dark hole in the clay ball. Oh, we were there, weren't we? We read that. I'm losing my mind, people. Then at the raging and throbbing glare of the furnace's open door. Then at the anvil. Then back at the lump of clay and the dark hole in it. God was saying, and I suppose you can just remake woman out of this ball of clay with her good angel inside it. Clever boy, crowed his mother. You've got it. It's all quite simple, right? Now, are you ready? And she fixed her great, round, hungry eyes on woman with a savage glare like a frightful eagle. Into the flames with her, she screeched, and God picked up the chair with woman tied to it. He raised it over his head and took a step towards the furnace. At that moment the ball of clay gave a thump and wobbled. God paused and looked at it. His mother looked at it. Sure enough, it was squirming like a sack with somebody inside. In one great leap, God's mother pounced on the clay and with one smack of her hand closed the hole. Now, she cried, quick! Get a shape onto this. God set down the chair, hoisted the clay onto his workbench, and began pummeling at it, pulling at it, tweaking it, pressing it, gouging it with his thumbs. He went at it non-stop, as if he were battling in a dark room with an invisible assailant. And at last he had it. And there it was. He held it up in his two hands at arm's length and laughed as it bunched and kicked and twisted. It was a strange beast, and true enough, it looked quite wolfish. But it was red, nearly the colour of the furnace flames, and its throat and its belly were white, even whiter than woman's face, who lay there in her gag and her ropes, her eyes closed, once again in a dead faint. Its slender legs were black, black as the wispy hair on woman's shins. Its eyes were amber. And as it writhed, it seemed to laugh, and its fangs were white and curved like tiny new moons. Suddenly it twisted right out of God's hands, hit the floor, bounced in one streak out through the door and was gone. God's mother laughed a cackling sort of laugh, wiping her hands on her apron. Then she gently undid the gag from Woman's mouth and untied the ropes. "Take her home," she said. "She'll need a good sleep now. We scared it right out of her." "So that was the demon?" asked God as he picked up Woman in his arms. "That," said his mother, "was not quite a demon. I'm not sure what it was, but it was very pretty." "Well," said God, "it looked to me that I'd like what I'd call fox." After that, Woman was a new person. A few days later, Man came to her very excited. "I've seen a new beast," he told her. "A dazzling new beast. God really is getting better all the time. I met it on the path. It was so gorgeous. I asked it to come home and live with us and be a pet." Woman pretended to be surprised as he described its red fur, its amber eyes, its slender jet black legs, its blazing white chest and chin, and its miraculous, lovely tail. "And wouldn't it come?" she asked. "Did it reply?" She really did feel quite curious to know the answer. "It replied," said Man. "It was very polite. It said, 'O Man, O husband of glorious and beautiful woman, it is the fear of being anyone's pet that has turned the tip of my tail quite white.' And it showed me the tip of its tail. And do you know, it was perfectly white." "What a pity," said Woman. But she smiled to herself. She never told Man what she had gone through in God's workshop, and God never told him either. So Man never knew the fox had ever had anything to do with her. But one day in his orchard he heard a soft clapping behind his raspberry canes. Creeping close, he saw an incredible sight. His wife sat there, clapping her hands lightly, while the fox danced round her on its hind legs, leaping and twirling, its wonderful tail floating around it like a veil, its silvery tongue hanging and its teeth flashing in its long smile. I shared a lovely video on Instagram of a fox coming out to listen to a man playing banjo yesterday. I actually loved it so much. I put it in one of my stories, which I very rarely do, Instagram stories, but it was just gorgeous. And here we are, the synchronicity, a fox dancing for the woman. He was so astounded he simply walked right up to them, crying, "Wonderful!" But before he had finished the word, the fox had vanished. In a flash it was nowhere to be seen. Where had it gone? How could it disappear so completely, so quickly? Man blinked. Had he been seeing and hearing things? Woman stood up and yawned. She came towards him, smiling sleepily as if he'd wakened her up from a nap, and Man felt so mystified that he said nothing. All he did was gaze at her, smiling slightly, frowning slightly. He simply did not know what to make of it. The end. We got there, we finished the whole book just in the nick of time, and we have about 6 minutes left, so I can quickly read to you my memory that came up in my memories. Oh, it was delightful. It was actually hilarious. I just thought it was just so sweet. I hope I have to hurry because we don't have a lot of time. Right, 18th of March 2018. So that was 7 years ago now. My lounge room stinks of cigarettes, but I don't smoke, well, rarely, but never in the house. I've had no smokers visit. My lounge faces away from my crazy Indian smoking neighbour, who often watches me at night while smoking, but I can't blame him, as there is no wind to carry the smell to my front door. Anyway, weird, just saying. And my friend, who was a friend back in the day, Terry Collier, wrote, I often can smell cigarette smoke in my room. And I replied, my parents, the fucked up ghouls, were non-smokers, so it's not them. My sister smoked. Maybe she has dropped dead. Unkind thought. Lol. She will be 68 on April 13. So this year she'll be 75, I think. Yes, that's correct, because I'm 60 on April 12. My friend Terry wrote, Tanya Aarons, maybe lol unkind, but deserved. And I wrote, shh, pure thoughts, karma, yada yada yada. And she wrote back, fuck karma, lol. And I replied, both my grandmothers, actually both my grandfathers also, smoked, but it could be any energy. I am utterly exhausted after my wild tempestuous dance, so perhaps have brought home an invisible loosh feeder, lol. Get thee hence, foul spirit. It's amazing how often I bring entities home with me, unconsciously and unwittingly, jumping off other people usually. Terry replied, my whole family smokes. I just assume it's my dad and tell him to go away. And I reply, karma is just the balancing act we all must play, like the sword of Damocles. It swings both ways. Terry wrote, how was your wild night, my love? And I replied, oh my God, I turned into a crazed little sex kitten. And she replied, rawr. And then I replied, at one point in my great dark clown performance art, I bent Morris down and pretended to smooch him, and the deer screamed like a girl. Oh, that was hilarious. We were such good friends. Well, we still are, but we used to really ham it up to each other at the live wire bar. Really ham it up. It was delightful. Far too young for me, young enough to be my son, which made it even more funnier because it was just harmless fun. Anyway, I wrote, it was hilarious. We played up all night long. So much fun, but weird. My new friend Nikki joined in. I had Morris under one arm and my arm round her belly. I whispered into her ear that I am not gay, so she is safe with me. Off we three went. Oh my God, laughing my ass off. She was a sweet young woman, seemed shy and anxious at first when she first introduced herself to me. But oh my, she soon found her wild woman after watching me and Morris go berserk for a while. I was well impressed. At another point, I broke character, or my alter ego lunatic woman, and Morris and I burst into hysterical laughter. And I said, oi, you made me break character. It was hilarious. And I soon found my locus, and off we went again. Bit shattered today, overdid it. If only I could channel that energy for paid work. But then I guess I heal myself and others. So who needs to worry about money? The universe benevolently provides for me. Thank you, universe. Most of the time. Right, now why has that repeated when I actually fixed that? Anyway, that's the end, and we're about to blip off. So I bid you adieu. It's been real, it's been happening, it's been intense, it's been emotional, it's been wild, it's been crazy. And my young friend Morris is married now with a baby, so we don't dance the wild, silly role-playing shenanigans like we used to. But if you watch